Politicians' inflammatory language, parts of a failure to tackle extremism, UK report finds. I'm going to read into this more from The Guardian, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from The Guardian with the headline, "The politicians' inflammatory language are parts of a failure to tackle extremism, a UK report finds." The report calls for a rational rethink of how ministers approach extremism amid risk of declining trust in democracy and institutions. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share this across social media so others are notified of this video. How many times have I done a video and said, this is not surprising? It's becoming quite a thing, isn't it? And here we go again. This is not surprising. We've allowed extremist and inflammatory language to be part of British politics. We've allowed it. The mainstream media has exacerbated it, and politicians, those who had the power to input and enact the laws to protect our way of life, have allowed it to engulf us. And it's more of soap opera more than ever before in politics, as opposed to actually serious stuff about actually dealing with people's issues and well-beings. That's the general consensus of feeling that people have these days. You know, people, whenever they go and watch Prime Minister's Questions, they don't feel a sense of, when they go to it, they feel that they're going to get the answers they're going to get to the questions that they're going to put to their ministers, and the ministers to put to the Prime Minister whenever they come round. It's always a case of just hogwash a lot of the time. When there's sadness or whatever, there's the general, whenever there's a horrible story, there is, sorry, get meeting with relevant minister. And you would hope that most of those stories end up in the end with goodness out of it, and that the government responded, the relevant minister responds, and things are dealt with. But many people these days do not feel that. People feel a great deal of distrust with politicians. And when you use inflammatory language that will rile people up, get people angry, get people upset, it turns people, and it sets the wrong kind of precedent to the ordinary people in public. How we speak, how we react, really does matter. How we talk really does matter, and it especially matters more to politicians. And some of the politicians, whether you agree or disagree, should have no place anywhere near the House of Parliament. Now, good thing I like to say is that a lot of the politicians who left, who were kicked out the door at the last general election, a lot of them, Jonathan Gullis being one of many, just as a prime example, you know, the language, the tone that man, the former MP, former constituency representing Stoke-on-Trent, it wasn't so much just as much the language that he used, but it was his tone and how he spoke, how he conducted himself, that set the wrong kind of precedent in how you're supposed to represent yourself. Now, things are, I would say, a lot calmer in the House of Commons since the change in general election. However, there are still one or two times where you still hear it in the House, but you don't hear it as much as you used to. But that's not to say that there aren't politicians still using inflammatory language. We need to root this out. More needs to be done. But the problem is that no matter how much we say this, it's not going to, because this is good. This is good ratings for the media. This is good. This is good drama. This gets people's eyes on their product. This gets people, you know, increasing their viewerships on TV or on YouTube or Twitter or whatever platform mainstream medias use. It's good for them because it gives them a story for you to talk about. That's the general consensus. So to them, the mainstream media, who, in my view, have a lot more sway on politicians than they should, they will not want to change the status quo. In fact, they probably would want it to go further because again, makes good ratings. Do mainstream media really care if the UK burns down? Not really. I don't think so. I think they're more concerned about the ratings as always. How many viewerships, how many clicks, all that kind of stuff. Same thing with the social media algorithm sort of thing. So they're just as fault where with all this than it is just politicians, because they allow it to happen. I mean, it gets called out, but does it get called out enough? No. You don't see this in other European countries, especially not on the level that we have it here. More needs to be done, as I said, but are we going to see that? Doubt it very, very much. So politicians have been criticised for using inflammatory language and peddling conspiracy theories in a report that finds government policies are failing to prevent extremism spreading and taking root in the UK. The report from Dame Sara Khan, a former counter-extremism commissioner, urges a rational rethink of how ministers tackle extremism amid a chronic risk of democratic decline due to conspiracy theories, worsening social cohesion and other threats. Anger and grievance about the cost of living crisis, as well as growing polarisation, were among factors linked to the report to decreasing social territorial and democratic resilience in Britain. Khan, who was Rishi Sunak's independent advisor for social cohesion and resilience under the government's counter-extremism commissioner under Theresa May and Boris Johnson, excuse me, has sent the report to the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper in response to a government's review of counter-extremism. It calls for a reform of the PREVENT programme so it solely focuses on stopping individuals being radicalised into terrorism and violent extremism with no responsibility for counter-extremism. The report says PREVENT is marred with questions about its effectiveness in preventing individuals from being drawn into terrorism and is enveloped in confusion about its role in counter-extremism. When I think about how individuals are how do individuals end up down this rabbit hole? Social media. Yeah, I think it's social media is the answer, is the main answer to this. How important it is now more than ever to teach the next generation of children how to teach them right and wrong, to teach them what is misinformation, what is correct information, reliable news sources and unreliable news sources. It's difficult because there's so much out there now to know what is right and what is wrong, but not everybody can buy into it. People can fall down this rabbit hole from all sorts of reasons of being radicalised in terrorism extremism. It can simply be a case of their life just going completely wrong. It could be a case that somebody lost their partner, or somebody spent their whole time in jail and they've come out and they've got absolutely nothing. It can be all sorts of reasons. All sorts of reasons how they go down this hole. It also refers to the role of elected figures using inflammatory language or even extremist rhetoric, propaganda conspiracies, or engaging in cultic wars. Yeah, this is one of the biggest problems. We keep, immigration is used as a stick to bash over people's heads, as all their problems revolve around immigration, and people generally believe that all their problems lie around immigration. They think that if they think the whole of the UK was full of white British people, that everything would be perfect. That there would be nothing wrong with the UK at all. Everything would be smiles and roses. That's how far they're going to push the rhetoric there, because it's something they can easily point the blame at, rather than looking at the long-term issues around the UK, using immigration as a key thing to rile up people and keep saying that it's those people who are suffering and struggling, who are crossing the boats on small dinghies, who actually want to come and contribute to society. They're the problem, not the billionaires and millionaires who have taken money out of your wallet, who are actually taking money out of your back pocket, your purses and whatnot, making you less poor, making life more difficult for you. It's not them. It's the poor people. The poor people who have absolutely nothing who are coming to the UK. Apparently, they're the problem, and not the millionaires and billionaires. You kind of see where I'm coming from, but you still want to believe it's immigrants and not millionaires and billionaires as your problem. Politicians clearly have an important role in what they say and the language they use, Khan says. If you use language that talks about distrusting the police or attacking an establishment in a certain way to whip up power or votes, then you have to think about the long-term consequences of that. That's contributing to this acceleration of decline of trust in our democracy and institutions, and is going to cause serious long-term decline. I'm concerned over the recent years that we've seen an increasing numbers of politicians jump on the conspiracy theory bandwagon, spread disinformation online, or use inflammatory or divisive language. I won't use names, but you know who they are. This year, the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage and other MPs, including Richard Tice, were criticised for comments about the police handling of the Southport killings. Both men have claimed that there is two-tier policing, with communities being treated differently. Khan's report, Social Threats and Declining Democratic Resilience, the New Extremist Landscape, reviews existing research and finds that 29% of people in the UK believe in the Great Reset conspiracy theory that claim there are plans to impose a totalitarianism world government. 45% of young men in the UK have a positive view of misogynist influencer Andrew Tate. There's literally videos. I've seen a video circulating online of Andrew Tate physically beating a woman in a bedroom. And men think that's okay. It's not okay. And anyone who tries to claim that it was consensual, no, she was in fear for her life. Just want to put that out there. 1 in 10 people shared the views or sympathetic to those who engage in violent disorder and rioting during the summer. This is very concerning. Why sympathetic to people who think it's okay to cause chaos and anarchy? Why are you sympathetic to these people? You're sympathetic to people who think it's okay to smash car windows, knock down people's homes and livelihoods. You think it's okay to set hotels on fire. What is the reason for that? How is that benefiting anyone? The report with the consultancy Crest Insight says the Keir Starmer's government faces a boiling point of issues, including the cost of living crisis, concerns about immigration, global events such as the Gaza conflict, and hostile foreign state interference. Yeah, all these things. Recommendations include establish a cabinet office body to ensure Whitehall develops a strategic approach to preventing and measuring democratic decline. What about extremism that fails beyond the terrorism threshold? We simply don't know how big it is. We don't know how analytical framework or assessment capabilities that demonstrate between hateful extremism and terrorism, Khan says. If you're talking about hateful extremism threat, a distance from the terrorism threat, I would argue that it is bigger in terms of coming from the far right. I'm talking about extremism that falls below the terrorism thresholds, and this is the thing things like recent public disorder and the summer riots. It's going to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. And, people are expecting their lives to be better off in America with the election of Donald Trump. And I if people's lives are better off, then I will be happy for them. But I don't have much hope in that. People generally believe that Nigel Farage will make the UK great. They generally believe that he will do what's best for. There are general people who are subscribers and supporters of reform who generally believe Nigel Farage will make the UK great. And general people who believe that. But I ask you to, not by his words, by his actions, to show me with his actions what he has done to show that he's serious about making things better. What has he done in Clacton since he's become their MP to make the constituency better for its people, for example? Give me examples. Give me examples. For me, it's not just about saying how good you are, it's about showing it. The prime example is the Green Party, and there's some of their members some of their MPs, they have shown their actions and what they have done speaks for themselves. Actions speak louder than words. You know, when Keir Starmer took over as Prime Minister, he said that he would be judged by his actions, not by his words. And at the moment, we have gone more than 100 days now. We're going into the Christmas period. He was elected, the Labour government were elected in July. And already people are going off a lot of what he has said. I've always said that we have to see and feel that we are better off before we can just jump into conclusions. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of things that this Labour government are doing that I think are diabolical and outrageous. And I've stated this on numerous occasions. Someone actually was stupid enough in the comments to claim that I was a Labour supporting, that I'm a Labour supporting, Labour supporting that. That's not what this. I'm not this channel in any way, shape, or form. I can assure you of that. No, I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt at times, but there are times where I need to call out what I see. But this inflammatory language and our failure to tackle extremism, there will be more riots because there is no accountability for those who started, those who simply asked the questions. You know, Nigel Farage was just as much responsible for insinuating the riots as much as any other people online. He wasn't indirectly, but he said what needed to be said to get people riled up. Has he faced anything for it? No, of course not. But you think he's completely and perfectly innocent, some of you out there. You're saying he's just asking questions. Well, when do those questions actually turn people negative and anger and hatred into violence? Ask yourself that next time you think he's perfectly okay. What do you guys think about inflammatory language? From politicians specifically, what do you guys think about extremism in the UK? Do you think we have a problem? Do you think people don't think? Do you think people just react and respond too quickly without thinking about the consequences of what they say and do? Let me know your thoughts on this report and more on this down in the comment section below. If you found this video interesting, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. If you want to go one step further and financially support me in the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.